Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Marketing the Invisible. Got a special treat for you today. I have got Robin Waite here, all the way from Robin. G'day from down under. Where are you calling in from?
I'm in Gloucestershire, so southwest of the United Kingdom.
So if we're down under, that must mean you're on top of the world.
Absolutely, yeah, always.
Yeah, compared to me, literally. Folks, Robin was we've done a little bit of work together in terms of the joint venture space, but he absolutely blew it out of the park in terms of supporting us. And I was just so impressed with not just the size of the following that Robin has, but the responsiveness from his people, which always tells me that this is a person who does the right thing by people, including his subscribers. So I've invited Robin onto the show to share a bit more with you about some of his marketing magic. He's, for those of you who don't know Robin, he's the founder of Fearless Business. He is a regular speaker at various business events and best-selling author of several books, including Online Business Startup, Marketing Machine, and the very more recent but very popular release of Take Your Shot. So I just want to underline that Robin's marketing is fresh, it's authentic, it's original, it's common sense, and it works. There's not a BS thing going. There's no smoke and mirrors required. What you see is what you get. So that's very refreshing. Subject today is fearless partnerships. How Robin generated, drumroll, 3,000 leads from one podcast interview. Folks, I'm going to start the 7-minute timer in a second, but I'm going to abandon the normal 7 questions that you're used to because there's a bit to unpack here, and I want to make sure we get the time to unpack that. Robin, as time starts now, how did you generate 3,000 leads from one podcast interview?
Well, yeah, like you said, a lot to unpack, but essentially it started in the end of 2022. After 18 years in business, I was just fed up with all of the Noah's Ark style marketing that all the gurus and everybody else purported that I'd been following for quite a number of years. So what I mean by that is like social media, posting every 5 times a day, doing all the usual sort of video marketing, short form content, all of that sort of stuff. I was just fed up with it. It literally felt like Noah's Ark, like one by one in terms of lead generation, in terms of enrolling clients. It was slow. I was tired. Like, I know I'm only 40, but it would just reach that point where enough was enough.
I think a lot of people are singing off the same hymn sheet as you, right? I think a lot of people have a similar experience.
That's it. We're all fed up with like the cold DMs that are out there and rife, and the emails arriving out the blue that are just buy my stuff.
Right.
So
and the ickiness and the requirement to bend your personality and your ethics out of shape, and the hard labor at the coalface of posting and hearing crickets.
That's it. So I just decided to abandon it altogether. I just gave up. I didn't know what at the time specifically what I was going to do instead, but one of the nice things is when you stop doing something, it gives you space and time to think about what might potentially work. And the thought which kept on rolling around in my head is like, what if, my dog Wilbur was going to get it if in a week's time I didn't capture 1,000 leads? What would I do? And it was none of that old stuff, right? So I just set myself this target and realized that I was really good at building relationships with people and sort of getting into people's worlds and being able to help them and add value and things like that. And I also noticed that these people like yourself, Tom, are just generally really fun, cool people to hang out with. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if I could align my marketing with hanging out with these really cool people? So that started the journey, really. So 1st of January 2023, I wrote a list of 10 people that I would just love to hang out with. They were just really great, fun people doing awesome things.
So about 18 months ago.
About 18 months ago, that's it, yeah. And so that list included people, and some of these people, your listeners might know, some maybe not, but they were important in my world. Ali Abdaal, who's a productivity YouTuber. There's Daniel Priestley, who's written goodness knows how many books, incredible entrepreneur. Stephen Bartlett from Diary of a CEO. There was 2 guys, Andrew and Pete. But anyway, I wrote this list down of 10 people who I just thought it would be fab to spend some more time with them. And then got hyper intentional. I was like, right, how am I going to nurture these relationships with these 10 people that are on my list? And by that, I meant, not just kind of pithy, just a bit of support here and there, but actually really get into their world and really show that I care about them. So the first tip was kind of like be intentional, write that list. But the second thing then was, right, I need to make sure I'm getting into the same room as them. I think in 2024, like nowadays, and you must get this, Tom, as well. It's really easy to just hide behind a computer and just, that's what drives the social media marketing, like guru-esque type stuff these days. I was like, no, I need to get out and actually put myself in a room with these people. And not only that, but add some value. So where this starts, I recognize we're halfway through now, so I've got a motor now, but and do stop me if you've got questions. So where the 3,000 leads came from in that one podcast interview, everything started to center around Ali Abdaal, and I'd already pre-built a bit of a relationship with him. We were part of a mastermind together several years ago, so I kind of knew of him and he knew of me. But I went to an event and I just showed up. I started being helpful. I was giving, there's like 500 people there to see Ali. I started giving people directions, helping them out, talking to them about, make sure you've got your book, Ali's book handy so you can get it signed. And I noticed as well that he captures a lot of content, but people were asking questions and they didn't have like a mic. And I noticed one at the front of the room. So I just went down and picked up the mic and started handing it out. So, and his team were kind of looking at me, but they knew me anyway. But it was just like, oh, Robin's just being helpful.
Right.
So this kind of continued. I got to know his team over that sort of first 6 months last year, started just giving them a bit of free coaching because that's what I do. It's my wheelhouse. They're all freelancers. Yep. 6 months of just solid, just nurturing that relationship and the others as well. And just being helpful. Right. And I think I gave about half a dozen coaching sessions across his team through that first 6 months. So obviously my time's valuable, but it was a worthwhile investment. And then one day, one of his team said, listen, Rob, this has been so incredibly helpful. Is there anything that we can do for you? And I said, well, perhaps there is, because you've got, yeah, it might be. So I said, I know the chap was dating the Ali's podcast manager, Amber. So I said, look, I know if you can just pop a note to Amber and just say, listen, I know Ali's got 2 seasons recording coming up. So, and he does a dozen episodes per season and he does it in person and they do it all back to back. So that's 24 interviews back to back over the course of 2 or 3 weeks. And I said, listen, if one of them doesn't make it, because I will fly in from all 4 corners of the globe, I said, put me on the subs bench. I don't want to ask you to put me on the podcast because I know that's a big deal. And he's had Ben Francis from Gymshark, and I'm not that. But if an opportunity comes up, somebody doesn't show up, put me on the subs bench. So finally in June last year, I got the call on a Thursday afternoon from Amber. Rob, we've had somebody drop out on Tuesday. Can you come down? Yeah, it's fine. Absolutely. And I hung up the phone. I was like, crap, I've got 2 podcast interviews, a coaching client. I've got the school drop and pick up to do. My wife's up in Birmingham working. So I had to cancel and rearrange everything. And then it was just, got a train journey down there. We recorded. And Ali's got, bearing in mind, he's got 6 million subscribers. So I knew it was going to be good. But the crux of it was like, and I think a lot of people, where they get podcasts wrong is a lot of the time they're kind of like, hey, look at me, look how amazing I am. And they forget about this, again, this notion of like being intentional and adding value to the audience.
Right.
So what we did is about 5 minutes before the interview, Ali said to me, oh, that coaching thing which you did with Saf, one of his team members, do you think we could do that on the podcast? So the first 2 hours of the show he just gave me a couple of business like ideas and we just workshopped them. We just coached around them. And it was amazing. Like the feedback was just incredible. So, and then about 2 hours into the interview, he finally went, oh, it's deep dive about Robin. We should probably learn a little bit about you. And so then the last part of it, we talked around sort of my background and things like that. But the kicker was at the end of it, again, leading with value. So what we'd agreed to do was sign 15 copies of my book, Take Your Shot. And we were going to gift those. So both of us jointly signed it. I kid you not, those 15 books went within the first 5 minutes of the podcast launching. Wow. So they didn't even watch the podcast. They just went and clicked and grabbed the link. And these requests kept on coming in. And I just kept on sending books out. So in the first 90 days, we did 1,500 requests for the book. I think I sent out 600 physical copies to everywhere, all around the world, all at my expense. I cover the printing and postage costs. It's it's obviously part of my marketing. And it's since gone on to generate 3,000 leads. And for context, it took me old school Noah's Ark marketing. It took me the best part of 3.5 years to generate 3,000 leads, doing all of the grindy sort of work.
Right.
And I did that in one interview.
Phenomenal story. I mean, a key takeaway for me is that all too often we're impatient. So we meet someone and we ask them, can I be on your podcast, for example, or we do one thing for someone, then we pounce. And you have this on LinkedIn all the time, people connecting. Oh, I'd love to add some value. And the next day it's like, oh, do you need a new website? So what key takeaway for me is, first of all, you talk about being intentional. You were very strategic. So I want to be in the room with as many of these top 10 as I possibly can be. Secondly, you were incredibly patient. Thirdly, you gave and you gave and you gave over 6 months odd without a requirement for a return. And if nothing had happened, I'm no doubt you would have walked away and gone, well, I did some good in the world. Anything you want to add to that? Because I've got to wrap this up. But they're the key takeaways for me. Anything I've missed, anything you want to encourage other people to do if they're looking to get into the world of developing influencers?
Yeah. So the key thing is, I think a lot of people are shrinking violets and they're too afraid to, the bit of imposter comes out and they see somebody like Ali Abdaal or a Dan Priestley and they don't want to approach them. And I think they're only people. You go and speak to them, have a conversation, like be a little bit fearless and just start that conversation and see where it goes.
Fantastic. Love that. And it's just good stuff, folks. It's gold. But so glad you shared it with us. I'm so glad you accepted my invitation to come on the show, and we get this out. We'll sprinkle it around the internet like confetti at a wedding because the world needs more of this. Robin Waite, thanks so much for your time.
My pleasure.
Thanks for checking out our Marketing the Invisible podcast. If you like what we're doing here, please head over to iTunes to subscribe, rate us, and leave us a review. It's very much appreciated. And if you want to generate 5 fresh leads in just 5 hours, then check out www.5hourchallenge.com.